Welcome to another episode of Talking College Football with JJ Kitchen. Of course, I'm your host, JJ Kitchen. Guys, great topics today. Obviously, what everyone's going to be wanting to know is about the second scrimmage. Talk about a great experience. It was a lot different than what I thought it would be, just how the scrimmage is run and what they do. But it was just such a great experience, and that has a lot to do with, obviously, Alliance 412. Being a subscriber of Alliance 412, the Royal or above, the levels that are there. But also, too, Pat Narduzzi allowing that to happen along with Heather Like. I can assure you they had to be within every fiber of Pat Narduzzi's body that truly just didn't want certain people there. That's for sure, especially outsiders. But he's adjusting his ways, which was a plus. And it was so cool to see some football but before the spring game and actually getting to see what the offense and what that stuff looks like. But, of course, before we get into it, guys, Colonial Beer sponsoring the show, as always, 4986 Library Road in Bethel Park, PA, 15102. Again, run by two great Pitt men, great people, great character. But also, too, if you go in there, obviously you've seen the pictures I posted on Twitter, a tremendous partner. You look at all the selections they have in there between, your light beers, your heavy beers, your IPAs, but more importantly, the fake slide Pilsner, which helps support the players at the University of Pittsburgh and is helping the preferred collective of the University of Pittsburgh, Alliance 412, which is the preferred collective of the University of Pittsburgh. And again, Colonial Beer located at 4986 Library Road in Bethel Park, PA, 15102. Great place, great people, great service. If you're having a tailgates are coming up, obviously, next Saturday. If you're looking to have those tailgates, I'll be walking around, getting to meet with certain people, getting to meet with people that watch the show. But more importantly, if you want somewhere that actually has everything you need, the selections, Colonial Beer is where it's at. And obviously, while you're there, pick up the fake slide Pilsner, which helps support the players at the University of Pittsburgh, and Alliance 412, which is the preferred collective of the University of Pittsburgh. Guys, again, plenty of different notes. Obviously, I want to give some shout-outs here in the comments section. Obviously, WRW Pitt, smash the like button and subscribe. Can you just getting on the scrimmage? I am today. Of course, my man Russ Baer, your elder viewers appreciate the 7:30 start time. I know I went a half hour earlier tonight. I thought I could do some people some favors tonight. It was fitting my schedule, too, so it worked out well for us. And, again, before we get into it here, obviously one more from over on X, Pitt Panther Fanatics #1, hail to Pitt. And, of course, Mike, two kids. We battled for that. I haven't heard much about it. Shadarian Harrison and Lamar Seymour. We'll get into a bunch of those for sure today. But going into it here, the thing that everybody wants to really hear about is the Pitt scrimmage. And what I can tell you is this. Obviously I'm going to pull up my notes as well. It's what you imagine, okay? So for starters, I posted yesterday on X, and numerous players that I posted from things that I watch, and obviously, for numerous reasons, like anywhere else around the country, you're not allowed to take pictures, you're not allowed to take videos of anything going on the field. That was one of the biggest things when you walked into the stadium. And look, and I think the large group that was there understood that. Everyone abided by those rules. It wasn't a big deal. I think it's hard to even take a video at some points because you're just watching intently, and you're looking at a team where there's no names on the back of their jerseys. You're memorizing numbers. You're seeing so many different new guys, how the offense moves. But the tweet I sent out yesterday, and actually I'm going to share it here with you guys right now. Let me see here. Where's it at here? If I can just get this off here. Going to share this with you guys. Obviously, if you didn't see the tweet yesterday that I posted, you'll see it here. That should be big enough there. I think you guys can see that really well. But what I tweeted out yesterday, saw a Pitt team today with enthusiasm. They were clearly determined, disciplined, certainly rejuvenated, plenty of speed on the football field, physical, togetherness. And what I mean by togetherness, guys that were pushing each other past their limits. And whether it was on the same team or on the opposing team's offense versus defense, they were pushing guys. And there were certainly a lot of a lot of competitiveness on the football field, as you heard the yelling and screaming and just the collisions on the field. I mean, it was great to watch. Pushing each other to higher goals, be better, a vision, and a plan. Again, I always said here, always love spring ball for this reason. This is where you build the team together. Find out who's on board the bus and who's not. The repetitions, success, and failures. And I think that's key. Failures in practice. The preparation for the season, a youth movement on the field and on the sidelines. On the field, meaning the players, and on the sidelines, meaning the coaches. Progress with every rep. See you all Saturday. So I posted that. Let's see if we can put this back up here. So I posted that. And honestly, I think when you watch the scrimmage, the one thing that stood out, and I'll go through a number of things, but the one thing that really stood out to me was the defense. I think that this defense is back to where it was, to the standard of what it is. There are a number of different guys on this team that certainly stood out. The guy that stood out the most and just was electric on numerous plays, had an interception on the day, was Rasheem Biles. When Pat Narduzzi talked about Rasheem Biles, a guy that he thought was standing out, he wasn't lying. The kid's a freak of nature. To be a true sophomore, because obviously they burned his red shirt last year because he played special teams, got a little bit of time on defense because, one, we were obviously limited on depth last year between injuries. It's amazing how well he looked and how he was able to jump a route and how he's able to watch, especially too with how fast the offense moves, how he's able to adjust his conditioning, his build of what he is, just the progress he's made from the previous year. It's almost like every tackle, whether he was blitzing, it didn't matter. He was creating pressure. He's a difference maker. He's a guy that he's going to get a lot of time this year. I think that probably we're thinking maybe another year for him, but it's not. It's here now. And I posted him, obviously, Rasheem Biles, a dog. I mean, the kid's a freak of nature. I mean, physical. He's got tremendous speed. I mean, you look at that linebacker room, and I've said it before, Ryan Manilak and what he's done to that linebacker room is second to none. The talent that's there. Brandon George, I mean, he's clearly the vocal leader of that defense, especially in the linebacker room. Presents a veteran voice, but also beyond physical at the point of attack, to whether he's in the passing game, whether he's blitzing, or in the run game. And I think the run game is certainly his strength and what he's done. And the linebacker room in just general. Kyle Lewis, I thought, had a really good day, had a number of tackles. Let's see if I can go through a couple here more of my notes here on the defense, on the linebacker room. Yeah, Solomon DeShields, obviously, are what you expect. Same thing with Brandon George. Solomon DeShields, another guy that did extremely well. But also Braylon Lovelace. We've heard a lot about him making that freshman to sophomore jump. He's another guy. He's from Leechburg here, hometown hero, a guy that's certainly going to get a lot of playing time this year as well. And I think Pitt's in a great position to where they don't have 3 guys. They have at least 6 guys. And it goes into, Braylon Lovelace, a guy who's physical, able to make adjustments in the passing game, a guy who just doesn't even look like a true sophomore. It looks like a guy that's a junior, potentially even a redshirt junior with 3 or 4 years under his belt. That's how well he's played. Same thing with Key Thompson and Kyle Lewis. Again, I talked about Kyle Lewis having a number of tackles. Key Thompson, the same exact thing, a guy who's done extremely well during camp. I just think that you get Key Thompson in there a little bit more. The more he plays, the more he'll get the understanding of the defense, and he'll play faster and faster as the time goes on. But it just comes with reps. He needs to continue to get reps in the defense. But you look at overall this linebacker room, I think it's rejuvenated. And the same thing with Jordan Bass. You have Jordan Bass that's there as well. You look at that room, it's a youth movement. You have a number of guys. You have Solomon DeShields, Brandon George, Key Thompson, the guys that'll be your veteran voices, but also too the younger guys that are there that still have this year, next year, and potentially the year after that. Cam Lindsey's not in there yet. Obviously, he gets there in May. Had a great conversation with his dad. He'll be there in May. Obviously, he'll have summer classes. He'll go through the playbook. He's a guy that's done really well. Jeremiah Marcelin, he was on the field for a good bit too. You just look at that room and you see the youth movement that's currently happening. I like the room a lot. I think it's done really well, and I think that it's a room that never in a million years would I have thought I would say, hey, this will be the strength of the defense. Because I just think that the way recruiting was, during the Rob Harley years, but also, too, just how good the defensive line is. Which brings me to my next point, the defensive line. Let me pull up my notes here. The guys that really stood out the most on the defensive line, and I think that, it goes hand in hand with the conversations that Pat Narduzzi has had with the public in terms of the news conferences that he's had. Nate Matlack. He is clearly, him and Dayon Hayes are clearly the two starters. There are no questions about that. I think they're head and shoulders above everybody else, but because of just the experience that they have and just how well they know the defense, Nate has really learned his defense very quickly. I think he's just naturally in a 4-3. He talked about why he left Kansas State because of that 3-4 defense just wasn't a fit for him. I think he's just beyond happy to be in a 4-3 defense where it's a vertical attack style defense, not horizontally. You're getting up the field and you're pressuring the quarterback, and he had plenty of pressures this past weekend. Plenty of pressures. Had, I think he accounted for 1 sack, but he had multiple pressures when it comes to getting pressure on the quarterback, whether it was Nate Yarnell, whether it was Eli Holstein, and a couple other quarterbacks that got in there. But, I mean, your usual two, Nate Yarnell and Eli Holstein, I thought did a really good job overall, but created pressure to both of those guys. Dayon Hayes, the same exact thing. But two guys I thought did really well that, people I think aren't talking about enough, but they certainly showed it in the scrimmage, is Jimmy Bear Scott, obviously out of New York. He had a tremendous coach in high school, Coach McCann, just coached correctly. Obviously, he had tutelage when he got here from Charlie Partridge, and now he's got Tim Doust, the new defensive line coach here at Pitt. I think Jimmy did a tremendous job. Again, the amount of pressure he's able to create off the edge, but also, too, in the run game. Staying within himself and staying in the lanes that he needs to be in. A guy that just continues to cause havoc. You saw the defensive line really step up, especially early on in the portion of the scrimmage. And it's not like a regular scrimmage either. They create certain areas, certain different levels of situations, and they run those situations. It's not like they're kicking off and punting the entire time, or it looks like an actual game. It's more of all you're letting guys get into a drive, and then you're restarting and then putting another team out there. But when you look at guys like him, Jimmy Bear Scott, I thought did a great job. David Ojebwe, Sincere Edwards, all looked really good. I think that when you look at that room, you're starting to develop a lot of those guys behind them in terms of what the depth looks like. Obviously, you still have Bam Brema there, which was big. Obviously, you still have him, Nate Temple, that went down for the rest of the year. Obviously, he's out of eligibility after this year. But you look at that defensive line on the defensive end side of the portion. I mean, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, potentially 6 defensive linemen. You say, hey, these guys are really starting to step up. So I think Pitt's done a really good job in that, and you're watching guys get more and more reps, especially the young guys. But the two guys that are really just overlooking that group, I think, is Nate Matlack and Dayon Hayes, which is really expected at this point. I think they're the most veteran guys on that defensive line, defensive end group especially, but how they're playing. And I think just the size on them, the speed, the physicalness, and also the violent hands they produce. And the same thing goes with Jimmy. I thought Jimmy did a great job during the scrimmage, just showing how well he's come, and especially, too, in a short amount of time, just how well he's done. So I'm happy to see that because, obviously, he was a big recruit coming out, and I think he's done a great job, and he's going to get a lot of playing time this year. When it comes to the inside, excuse me, when it comes to the inside, your two guys that I think really stick out to me were Sean Fitzsimmons and Nick James. I think Nick James, the more he gets involved in this defense, the better he gets. Same thing with Sean Fitzsimmons. I think he's due for a breakout year. He's completely 100% healthy, a guy who continues to move bodies. I think you look at that guy where he's so physical, he's so intelligent with football IQ. I think he's done a great job, especially with his technique. You look at a bunch of these guys. I think Nick James is a bigger guy. But, Sean Fitzsimmons, not exactly the guy, he's not like a 6'4", 6'5" guy, one of your smaller guys in there. But guess what? A lot like Elijah Cansey, he knows what the hell he's doing. I think he does a great job with violent hands. His first step, getting to be able to shed blocking. When he gets blockers on him, he's able to shed blockers, creates havoc in the backfield. It was good to see him step up, and I think he's going to be very much needed this year. You also look behind those two. Nakai Johnson continues to impress in the middle. I think he's really found his home. He had a number of plays, especially in the run game, where you look at some of the line, the offensive line groups, maybe not the first team, but the second team. He's in there, man, and he's just creating havoc. He's able to shed blocks. I think he's found his natural home because he's just built like a truck. I think just his transformation body wise is incredible, but his speed in the middle, it kind of reminds me a lot of what we've seen here for numerous years from guys that really produce and create pressure, whether it's the Jalen Twymans or the Kalijah Kansies. I'm not saying he's at that level yet, but he has that quick twitch, what you're looking for. He's certainly not on the end of like a Tyler Bentley or a Devin Danielson, where they were really your prototypical defensive tackles to where they're taking up space and they're stopping the run. Maybe not so much in the pass game. I think what you're going to see in this defensive line group is Pitt going back to what it's really originally done, which is a lot of vertical pressure, getting into the backfield, going after the quarterback, creating a lot of pressures, and also too being able to get more sacks this year. I think we had less sacks last year. Due to the teams that we faced certainly were looking to run the football because they felt like we couldn't score. So if they had a lead, they certainly were going to throw it that often. I think that this year that's certainly going to change, especially with the offense that we have here. But we'll get into the offense here in a second. But you look at those two, Sean Fitzsimmons, Nick James, Nakai Johnson, but also Elliot Donald had himself a good day. I thought Elliot did a really good job, especially in the run game. Did a tremendous job of being able to keep his space, working with violent hands, physical, being able to really move people left and right. Again, a guy that continues to get better. You look at the pros and cons of each one of these guys. I think, again, you look at, the Sean Fitzsimmons, the Nick James of the world. You're looking at your 1-2. The rest of these guys, there's plenty of pros and a couple cons where they're still working things out. They're still able to move guys through. I like these guys a lot, especially as a top four. But also, too, when you look in there in the middle, you're going to have guys this year, they're going to play early. And that's, you got Jashir Whittington. You got guys like him, Jashir Whittington, Francis Breu. Those guys certainly going to get a lot of looks this year, get a lot of playing time. Ty Uhas will get some looks. I think they'll redshirt him this year just to make sure they keep his red shirt alive and get him 4 years of eligibility because he's going to be a guy that's much needed in the future. But you overall look at it, you're going to see a bunch of veterans. You have a couple veteran guys in there, but majority of it, you're looking at guys that have a number of years of eligibility and their younger group, and you're going to see more and more the confidence build when they get more and more reps. So I'm excited to continue to see that and continue to see that defensive line develop. But just the guys that really stood out to me when you watch that defensive line, Nate Matlack and Dayon Hayes, really just off the edge. I thought just did a tremendous job, especially too in creating pressure. And it'll be continuing to fun to watch and what they look like going forward. Obviously, a couple comments here before I keep going here because obviously I'm running away with it here. Come have a beer with us on Saturday. Sounds good. Send me Pitt Panther Fanatic. Obviously, just send me a DM on Twitter. I'll certainly take a look, that's for sure, and figure out where you guys are and certainly come by and introduce myself. Fan to fan, yo, what's going on, man? The Reaction Podcast. Is Junko going to be the punter this year? We're going to get to that. There's certainly a competition, but I can tell you this. There's definitely improvement there. And Jacob Bronowski, the new tight end and special teams coordinator, has certainly changed things. And I mean, when I mean change, it's a completely different. It's 180. It's a completely different world on special teams right now. But we'll get to that here in a second. Hey, JJ, great to see you, brother. How does Bass, Che, Seymour, and Polk look? I'll get to that here in a second. But obviously, too, for just a quick one, Polk actually had a touchdown catch on Saturday. He looks really good. I think Seymour and Shea and Bass, your prototypical guys. They continue to get better. I think Bass is, again, going to be a stud this year, like he always is. I think he just continues to get better. He's just a physical specimen, football IQ through the roof, understanding what his assignment is. Che and Seymour, they certainly had repetitions, maybe not as much as the 1s and 2s. Obviously, you're really your 1s and 2s, and we'll get to in a second. I'll go more in detail to give you a better answer. But of course, your top guys were Konate Mumfield, hell of a day. Konate Mumfield, hell of a day. Dejon Reynolds, a great day. CJ Lee, hell of a day. I think possibly the best day of anybody. Of course, him, Kenny Johnson. We'll get into that, but I just think that the position groups in terms of skill positions have certainly been upgraded. And I think this offense fits a lot of these guys and what we're looking for. And I think with the pace of play we're going to get into with the offense, these guys will be needed. And I think they've done a really good job. And I just think that CJ Lee, who was a freshman All-American in FCS and one of the top wide receiver in the FCS, is certainly making the transition. The guy gets open. I mean, his footwork when you're watching, and again, I know I'm going off pace here on the defense, so I apologize to everybody. His footwork, CJ Lee, is truly just beautiful to watch because he is so quick. He has the speed, but his route running is so crisp. He's able to navigate and create major openings within the defense, whether it's on the outside or going over the middle. Pitt will not be they will not be scared to throw over the middle this year. I got news for people. There's going to be a lot of open plays, but his speed and just how his route running, his route tree, just looks great. And I think that that has a lot to do with Cade Bell. I thought the route trees look really good. And again, when you're there in person, you're trying to watch everything all at once without having to rewind the tape. Obviously, in a perfect world, I would love to have just the all 22, and you're watching each individual player, especially the offensive line and who's there and who's not. But I thought CJ Lee had a hell of a day. But I'll get you more in terms of an answer when we get to the offense. Thank you for your hard work. Hail to Pitt. Hail to Pitt, brother. I appreciate you watching as always. So back to the defense. We went through defensive line, linebackers. All right, let's go to the corners. Again, as always, Taman Lynham, he's going to be a starter day one. I think he's just a physical specimen again. Got him out of Nebraska. I thought he did really well. Javonte Royal had a number of reps at corner. He played wide receiver last year. Again, he's a bigger guy, very physical-looking guy. I thought he did a really good job. Struggled at times here and there, especially too when he was on guys like CJ Lee. I think it has a lot to do with more just like CJ Lee is a really damn good wide receiver and a lot better than what people might have thought. But Javonte Royal did really well. Rylan Gandy, Tamarian Crumpley had an interception. He had an interception. Rasheem Biles had an interception. Both of those were thrown by Nate Yarnell. Just a great play by Rasheem Biles, and we'll get into more of the quarterbacks when we get there. But overall, really good. Really good when you look at the cornerback room. Do I think they maybe go after one more guy to really bring in more, just so you have depth? I think they do, because you'll have Lynham, Tamarian Crumpley, Rashad Battle, Rylan Gandy. That's 4. And then who am I forgetting there? There's a name I'm forgetting in there. Oh, yeah, Noah Bigelow. Noah Bigelow had a really good job, too. I thought he played really well. So you have 5 there right now, but maybe one more just to solidify the depth. I think they may go out and do that depending upon who the guys that aren't on the too deep that go into the transfer portal. Because obviously Pitt needs about 6 or 7 guys that go into the portal to get to the 85, and a couple more to add on if they want to. But the cornerback room is young. Taman Lynham, a guy that's going to be probably going to head that group in terms of what he looks like. And then Rylan Gandy will probably be on the other side. That'll be huge. I think those two will really run that room for the most part. Behind them, I think Tamarian Crumpley is really starting to step up. He's got a real good reputation of what he's done so far in camp. I saw it again on Saturday, so that was really good to see. I say that's really there. And then your Noah Bigelow, I think, would be number 4 at this point. But maybe one more cornerback would really do the trick, especially if you're able to get a guy who's got a lot of experience. Maybe you throw him in there to compete with Rylan Gandy as a guy that you look at as potentially a guy who can compete for a starting position or really share those reps. So we'll see. Then we go to the safety room. The depth of this room is just incredible. You love to see it. Obviously, too, Shadarian Harrison, a guy that also is really in the cornerback room for the most part because of the depth. Shadarian Harrison, a guy who's just, again, I think he's a really good football player. Got some reps out there. I still think he's really good. I think he's just continuing to play more and more, getting more repetitions in there. But Shadarian, obviously, who was injured really all last year, I think just getting more and more reps and getting comfortable. So it's not a negative thing, but he just needs more reps after really being out all last year due to an unforeseen injury before the season started. You look at the defense overall. Let's see here. Safety room again. You got your Donovan McMillan, Javon McIntyre. I think those two guys just continue to show just the knowledge of what they're able to do, how well they've done. I would say for the most part, that's really your 1 and 2. The question becomes, where are you going to put Cruz Brookins? Because he's flying on the scene. I mean, he is doing everything you'd want to see. A guy that's certainly getting plenty of playing time, especially on Saturday. Took a lot of reps. I mean, a lot. Certainly not scared. He delivered a major hit. A running back was going to the outside, bounced it, got a couple yards, and just Cruz Brookins came out of nowhere and just absolutely just set the world on fire. I mean, just absolutely mauled him. I mean, when you're in that stadium and there's no fans there like what we're used to on a regular Saturday, you're hearing the pounding that some of these players are taking. I mean, it's physical. That's why I put that word in there in the tweet that I sent out. These guys were physical yesterday. I mean, you can tell they're fighting for jobs. I mean, it's coming down to competition, which you love to see. Competition makes the team better. Depth makes the team better. And I think in that safety room, you're seeing a lot of competition, and Cruz Brookins isn't holding back. He's delivering blows out of Steel, the hometown hero out of Steel Valley, coming up on his true. And luckily we saved his red shirt. So he'll be a red shirt freshman this year. I mean, just absolutely mauling people at times. The same thing with Donovan McMillan. He's down in the box playing a strong safety, and he's down in the box and being able to create just havoc on the offensive line. I love the safety room for Pitt this year. It's going to be a major upgrade. Obviously, you still have P.J. O'Brien back there, and Jesse Anderson continues to do a really good job. When he gets his reps in there, obviously it's a crowded room, but those two continue to do really well. P.J. O'Brien had himself an interception. He did really well. That was thrown, unfortunately, by Nate Yarnell. During the red zone drills they were doing, P.J. O'Brien he continues to get better. I think he sees the multitude of just competition that's in that room and just what it looks like. And they're certainly going to rotate guys to make sure guys are fresh to where nobody's really laid off to where there's any chance that anybody gets tired. These guys, there's plenty of depth in that room, and I think they've done a hell of a job. Overall, I thought the defense did really well. The defense did win the scrimmage because a last stand right at the end of the scrimmage, they were able to do it. They were able to hold it off. But damn, that's not saying anything really bad about the offense. I thought the offense at times did really, really well, and we're going to get into that here. But overall, I love what our defense looks like again. I think it's back to what it really was. And again, it's only spring. They're facing each other. You keep things light at this point because you're facing each other. You're not going to take too much out of it at this point. I think when you look at this from a perspective of, what do you take from a scrimmage like this? You're going to have pros and cons on each side. You're going to say, hey, the defense did really good in these areas. It didn't do too well in this area. And then the offense did really well in this area and didn't do well. But you're not going to know what this team is able to do until week 2, where you're facing Cincinnati on the road in Cincinnati. And you go to the Cincinnati Bearcats. And then week 3, when you face West Virginia at home at the Backyard Brawl during a rivalry game. That's when you'll find out who the hell this team is. But when you look at the scrimmage overall, I was happy with what I saw. There's plenty of room for improvement on the defensive side to where, not losing gap assignment. A couple guys, especially that are backups, came in, not losing gap assignment, especially on the run games where Desmond Reed had himself a hell of a run. A guy, again, I call him a fire hydrant. Certainly not tall, does not have the height. I mean, it's him next to Eli Holstein and Nate Yarnell in the backfield. It's just funny to watch. But Desmond Reed, man, he is a powerful back. And when he gets some space, he's moving and he's hauling ass. I mean, that kid, it had to have been, a 55, 60-yard run. I mean, it was lightning in a bottle. I mean, the kid just took off. He's going to be a guy that's going to be a weapon this year, and we're going to be using him in plenty of different situations, and especially 2 on third down. I think he's going to be a tremendous guy where out of the backfield, it's almost like he's an extra. He can be in an RPO game, a running back if you need to run it if it's 3rd and 2. Or out of the backfield where he can create space, and he's able to do that because of his route running. I think because he's so used to Cade Bell's offense. He's certainly a back that can catch the ball out of the backfield, but also, too, his creating space when he gets that football in the small creases, he's able to get out there and take it to the house. So that was really good to see as well. Now to the offense, all right? And I know I waited on this a little bit. I didn't want to go to the quarterback right away because people are going to be asking me about it. I know people want to hear about it. But it's what you'd imagine when it comes to the offensive side of the football, but more importantly, the quarterback room. Okay, guys. One thing I do like about this scrimmage that I saw was really that all of the quarterbacks got reps. And it's all of them. Nate Yarnell, Eli Holstein, Christian Veyer, Ty Diffenbach, and Julian Duggar all got reps. They all got reps. And there's pros and cons to everything that currently happened over the weekend. That's for sure. Personally, from what my eyes told me is that the quarterback competition is really down to 2 guys at this point. And that's Nate Yarnell and Eli Holstein. I think that it's appropriate. I think it makes sense. I think those 2 guys certainly controlled the level of the tempo, what it needs to look like. I think that when you look at the team overall on offense, the one thing they're still adjusting to, especially the offensive line, is just the pace of the game, the pace of just how fast they're going, because it's wild when you guys see this. And I think, again, it's going to be vanilla next Saturday, but just the pace of how this team is moving is just, I mean, under no circumstance did anybody probably ever think they'd see an offense like this under Pat Narduzzi. I mean, there's plays where they certainly speed it up, and then where they slow it down. They're really just maneuvering and trying to move the defense left and right, back and forward. How fast can we move them? Can we get them tired? It's fun to watch. And when it comes together completely, I think this offense is just going to be freakish. I mean, I think that it's getting there. And still over the weekend, they had 5 touchdowns. I mean, they moved it, and there were some damn good plays and some big plays. I think there might have been more than 5 touchdowns because there's so many plays because how fast they're moving. But the quarterback room is certainly down to Nate Yarnell and Eli Holstein, which makes the most sense. I think just Eli continues to show what he's able to do. Cade Bell talked about how Eli Holstein, he's taken to another level. He's able to decipher the defense, read the defense, make quick decisions to get the ball out of his hands. That was like that on Saturday. He was able to get the ball out of his hands, had really 2 nice, good touchdown passes, one to Dejon Reynolds. Just good, crisp throws. Like anyone else, obviously trying to make those tight passes in between. Sometimes they got a little bit too tight, ended up incomplete. He didn't have any turnovers on the day. I thought he did really well in terms of distributing the football, making those RPO reads. Only really him. I mean, when you're watching and you're not knowing the calls or anything like that, I think it's between obviously him and Cade Bell, knowing when RPO, when you're looking at the RPO, when to give it off, when to pull it and pass it. I thought he did well. I thought he knows the offense really well. The same thing goes with Nate Yarnell. I think that he did look good. Obviously, there were times where he tried fitting it into close spaces. He had turnovers. I think overall, it was probably 2 or 3 interceptions he threw. A couple, especially in terms of the red zone, what it looked like. The red zone drills they were running. Just, I think the one was actually a really good throw. Just, again, Rasheem Biles jumped right in front of it. It was a hell of a throw. It's a good read. There's nothing you can do about that. Sometimes guys are going to make good plays. The one that Nate threw, I thought was just, I didn't know where it was going. If it was probably miscommunication on both the wide receiver and maybe the quarterback. That was just a bad throw on him. But overall, when you look at the full body of work, I mean, he had a couple touchdown passes as well. And I mean, threw a beautiful, beautiful ball to Gavin Bartholomew. And Gavin Bartholomew, again, called him a dog because he is a guy that's out there. When you throw the ball in his area, he's going to catch it. I mean, that's just how it is. I mean, the guy, he's not scared to go over the middle. He's a tight end that what you just truly want in college football and the National Football League. A guy that's not scared to put his hand in the dirt and block, but a guy that's certainly not scared to run over the middle, catch a football, take a hit, but also deliver a hit. I mean, he's that good. And it's so just disappointing last year to see how bad the offense was and not getting him in the game plan, not getting him the football. That's certainly going to change this year with the amount of targets that he got, especially seeing on Saturday. I thought he did really well. But when you look at those 2 quarterbacks, I think those 2 are clearly the front 2 and the guys that are running. When it comes to Christian Veilleux, he threw a touchdown pass. I thought he did. I thought he did a good job on a number of passes. He had a touchdown pass, which was a beautiful throw to Nate Yarnell threw into CJ Lee. I can't remember which one Christian Veilleux threw to. I can't remember which wide receiver. It might have been Kanate. But the one thing with Christian, turnovers. He threw an interception. The turnovers are still, potentially a question mark. Also, too, he's not behind the starting offensive line, so you got to watch how much you judge it. But just too much skittish to where it's just not seeing the whole field taking off. And again, that might have something to do with the backup offensive line, what that looks like. There's a whole bunch of things that can go into that, but he certainly has fallen back. I think he holds on to the ball just a little bit too long. He's still reading it too long, trying to hit that deep shot too much instead of just taking what's in front of him, what's potentially there. That's really important. One guy that I actually liked that was really, again, a young guy, got some reps in there was Ty Diffenbach. I think for a guy at his size, and I understand why he played wide receiver now, He's a guy that's very, very, his agility is just really good. He's got a strong arm, made a number of good throws. I thought a really good throw to Konate Mountfield over the middle. Good throw there. Christian Veyer had a good throw over the middle to Dejon Reynolds as well. I thought he was able to tone it down and not go for the deep ball, but go for a nice, good 10, 15-yard chunk play. Did a really good job there. But Ty Diffenbach, I think he's got a lot of talent to him. I think just it's a crowded quarterback room at this point. I think your top leading two guys is obviously Nate Yarnell and Eli Holstein, what everyone really expected at this point, and is really 50-50 whichever way can go. I still think as the season goes on, I think that as spring camp goes on, they've got a couple more practices left. As fall camp goes on, I think that Eli Holstein, I think he'll win the job. That's just my personal opinion. No, there's nothing inside about that, just what I see. But he's done a good job. Ty Diffenbach, again, I think that he has the potential to be a really good quarterback down the road. But you saw the agility he had. You saw the arm strength that he had, which was great. And obviously, some of those guys didn't get as many reps as obviously Eli Holstein and Nate Yarnell, obviously. And then obviously, too, Julian Duggar did a bunch of good things, too. I think when you see him in person, man, he is a big, big athlete. Big arm. I think he had like a 35, 40, 45-yard run at one point, took off and moved people. I mean, he's just a big dude, big guy, big athlete, can move, can run, strong arm, but obviously limited on reps. I think that he's going to be a guy that you look at down the road potentially, who could be a good quarterback for Pitt. Honestly, I think he fits the system really well. Just again, he's a true freshman. He's still a puppy. You got to give him time. So I'm not judging anything harsh on there, but he made some really good plays. I think he's a great athlete, and certainly he's going to be fun to watch as the years go on. But I think this quarterback room comes down to two guys, and that's Nate Yarnell and Eli Holstein. And we'll continue to see the quarterback competition go through all the way through the summer and into fall camp. That's going to be a fact. I think it's certainly going to be a quarterback competition all the way through. Then, obviously, you looked at here. Let me pull up here. The running back room. Rodney Hammond, Derek Davis, I think are going to be a tremendous 1-2 punch. Obviously, Rodney is your number one. I think Derek Davis continues to have a strong camp. The former 5-star out of Gateway went to LSU, transferred from LSU to Pitt to play more running back. I think he could have played running back at LSU, but he wanted to come home, which was good for us because I think Lamar Lindsey is really turning it on. If that's correct there, hold on. The new running back coach, obviously, I think he's done just a hell of a job. I think it's come to a new point where you have a new identity, a new coach in there with a new voice. I think he's done a hell of a job, and I think that Derek Davis has certainly taken to his coaching. Derek Davis is a big back. I mean, he's got hate to compare him to anybody from a Penn State, man, but his legs, I mean, they're like legit tree trunks. They look like a Saquon Barkley. I mean, when he ran over, when he had a really good run where he took it to the hole, very small crease, hits the hole, hits the crease, starts getting up to the second level, comes to our end because for where we were, we can only sit in on the closed end side of the end zone on the corner there where the tunnel is where the players come out. You saw him come over there and take a ball, man, and he just took off, was tackled, got up. Man, he's a running back, man. I mean, he is just, it's freakish that a guy could get that big at running back and just his legs. It's just pure muscle. I mean, the guy's just in hella great shape. But that goes for Coach Stack and all those guys in the Pitt Ironworks and the strength and conditioning team. I mean, some of these guys, it's just like the year-to-year progress that you're seeing, how well they eat, the program in terms of strength and conditioning. These dudes are ready to go. I mean, they are mauling. I mean, they are hitting people, and I think those two guys did a hell of a job. Desmond Reed, I thought, did a really good job, had a number of big runs. The biggest one was about 60, I'd say 55, 60 yards. Broke 2 tackles and then took it to the house. And this kid, it truly is a fact. He has speed, and he has elite speed. He moves, and I think it's hard to find him underneath all these, these big-time offensive linemen and big-time D linemen. It's hard to find him. And then when he hits the crease and he hits that small crease, boom, he's able to get through there. And all of a sudden, the linebackers are just freaking out because it's too late. Once he's already reached past that point of the point of attack to where where the line of scrimmage is, he's already getting it to the point where he's already at full speed hitting the second level, you're not catching him. You got to be in certain alignments to where you can contain a guy like that or contain him at the line of scrimmage. And if not, once he gets outside or hits that second level, he's gone. I mean, that's how fast he is. Just tremendous speed for a running back. He's like a fire hydrant. Reminds me a lot like a Jaylen Warren from, obviously Pittsburgh Steelers fans. I mean, he's a smaller guy, but he's not afraid to hit anybody. He's not afraid to hit anybody, go whole full head on with someone, and then really take off and have that speed. Just my opinion of how he looks. Also, too, Montrevious Lloyd, I thought he did really well. His pass protection has taken off this year for how many times Pitt threw, which was a lot, because obviously there's so many plays being run. I mean, it's a lot. I mean, in the pass protection, you're watching these running backs and how they block. I thought Montrevious Lloyd did really well. Had a number of good runs where you thought he was going to get stopped at the line of scrimmage. Pushes the pile at least 2 or 3 yards. I mean, he's going to be another good back too, and he's young, so he's going to be a redshirt freshman this year. We'll see how much time he gets, but he'll be a guy in the future that certainly gets a lot of repetitions for how fast this offense goes. Obviously, your 3 guys will get a lot of carries, but rotated a lot is Rodney Hammond, Derek Davis, and Desmond Reed, because you got to have numerous guys for how fast this offense goes. But he did really well, Montrevious Lloyd. And also, too, the true freshman, Jules Goff, another guy who showed speed. He had a couple runs where he was able to take off and create that speed. But also, too, for a young guy, he certainly does have the physical abilities to really hit people and move a pile. He was really fun to watch. He didn't get a lot of reps, obviously, in this game because the running back room, like anywhere else, a lot of these young guys, it's just there's so much going on. And it's not like the spring game where you have 2 offenses where you're able to get guys where you have 2 different running backs rotating in, or really 4 running backs rotating in. It's just one offense, and then you're rotating guys in. I think he's going to be really good. I think he was an underrated pickup from the middle of the state. Kenny, obviously, by way of knowing, Kenny Johnson knows him. Just a really good player. Not going to get a lot of playing time this year unless there's injuries, but he is a guy that is he's got speed. And Pat Narduzzi kind of compared him to, Izzy Abanikanda, obviously not on his level in terms of what he looked like his senior year or his junior year whenever he left for the draft. But he's got the speed. He's got the speed, and once he gets more reps, he'll be really, really good. So I was happy about that. Overall, the run game, you'd like to see more breakaway plays. You'd like to see the running game get more of an up-tempo look to where sometimes where Pitt would have a really good play, boom, you throw it. It's a great play. You pick up 10, 15 yards. Get to the line of scrimmage, you snap it after 10 to 15 seconds, and then you run into a pile sometimes where it just and I think that has a lot to do with just the overall the speed of it, where they're still adjusting to that point. But overall, you look at the offense where you just want some consistency out of that. I think instead of just having it's either a big play or nothing, you want to be able to get that 2.5, 3.5 yards per carry, and boom, you're able to take off, and then you're able to just really develop a system to where you create the continuity between that offensive team, the offensive line, and the running back room, and you're able to do what the hell you want, whether it's passing or running. But I think that's just something that they need to work on because the offense is so new, and it's only spring. It's not fall. It's only spring. So they're still working on that type of what does a run game look like? Are they able to get effective? Are they able to be consistent and not have these these plays where they get stuffed at the line of scrimmage? I think that kind of stuff just takes time, and it's still spring. I'm not judging anything off of spring because the progress is there. But I think when you start seeing in the fall what it looks like in terms of, hey, here's how fast we'll go. Here's how we're able to pick it up. Here's how we're able to adjust. Here's what we know players are able to do. And then you get into the season, you find out what we can do. So that's one thing. You just want to see the run game more consistent. But, man, there were a number of guys who had a ton of breakaway plays. It was just that home run hitter, but they're about 3 or 4 of them. But still, you'd like to see more consistency out of it. But I like our running back room a lot. I really do. Coming over to the wide receivers, obviously there's some comments here. My man, Brian Williams, hail to Pitt. Tim Bales, another good show. Thank you. Adam, how's the D-line look? I hope you see more pressures and sacks compared to last year. We'll go back over that here in a second, Adam. And then evening all. Sooner in Texas, my man, of course. Throw the hooks down, obviously. My Sooners. I appreciate you joining the show, brother. But back to it here. The wide receiver room. I thought the best wide receiver on the day was C.J. Lee. I mean, he had numerous plays where, they want to get the ball out. They want to get the ball out, get it to a guy. And CJ Lee, again, I love his route running. I love his speed. I think he's a technician. Reminds me a lot of like a Konate Mumfield, to where you're going to get some damn good route running. He's going to be able to create separation and be able to make catches. That's exactly what CJ Lee did. And he had a touchdown catch in the game. I thought he did a tremendous job. And, I might have missed a couple TDs on who got TDs on the other end of the field. It's kind of hard to see when you're on the other end of the football field without the Jumbotron, having, replay or watching the All-22. There's certainly stuff I missed because half the scrimmage was on the other side of the football field, probably by design. Just saying, again, not a shot to Narduzzi or anybody, but, half the scrimmage was on the other side of the field. But he had a hell of a day. I thought, let me see here. Dejon Reynolds had a TD catch. He had 3 or 4 catches, had some chunk plays. He did really good. And let's see here. Just want to see, again, and Dejon just being more consistent on what he's able to do. I thought he was able to really create separation on a number of his throws. I thought the Eli Holstein to Dejon Reynolds touchdown pass was really good. Then he had a good catch from Christian Veyer over the middle. Kind of let him a little bit too much, and he was able to just almost like slide to where he was able to slide, really make that catch, bring it in for that 10 to 15 yards he was able to pick up. So that was good. But other guys, Kenny Johnson, Izzy Polk, Zion Fowler, and then Raphael Williams. I mean, this room's deep. It's got talent. Did anybody in that room? Obviously, Izzy Polk had a touchdown. Zion Fowler had a number of good catches that he was moving. I thought he did a tremendous job. Was there anything spectacular? No, but you're seeing the progression. Not every player is going to have an outstanding day, or not every player is going to have, not every player is going to have a freaking nature play. I think guys just did their parts, and I think, it was cool to see Izzy Polk get a touchdown, Zion Fowler with a number of catches. Kenny Johnson, the guy, just he is who he is. Consistent. You know what you're going to get. He's going to be elite level wide receiver this year. He can catch the ball going deep, whether you run him on a go route or if you need him over the middle and you need to make a really tough catch, he's going to do it. I'm so excited to see what he does this year in a legitimate offense, to where we are pushing the ball down the field. And if it's not there, we're able to have a dump off or something in the middle. You're looking at your progressions in terms of your tiered, especially over the field, where your short game, your intermediate game, and your deep ball. I like it a lot. I think he's going to do really well in this offense. That's why I'm glad he's here. At tight end, it's Gavin Bartholomew. I mean, that's just kind of what it is at this point. You've got one guy who's probably going to be on the field the majority of the time. Thought Jake Overman came in and had a number of good plays. Same thing with Jake Renda, but obviously you can imagine what your tight end room is going to look like, and that's Gavin Bartholomew. He's going to get the majority of the looks, especially in the passing game, especially when we're third and long, or what it looks like, third and long or fourth and short. You can rely on Gavin Bartholomew to get open and get that ball. Now to the offensive line, okay, and I think there's good and I think there's bad. I think that there were certain guys that certainly stood out. Obviously, Jacoby, he's not back yet because he's still, he is 100%, but why risk anything? BJ Williams, I thought, looked really good. He continues to step up. As a guy who's only a true sophomore, I thought the reps that he got as a true freshman was really good. And I thought, for the season that we had, I kind of just, I was saying the entire time, just put him in there, let him get reps, because this is how he's going to learn, by playing the game. That's how you get better, playing the game, getting in there. Because one, he was so raw last year, but you're just seeing the confinement to where he's fine tuning his skills, and he is a starting offensive lineman. I mean, he is just, I like him a lot. I really do. I think he's a hell of a football player, and I think he's going to be a starter, preferably at right guard, in my opinion. I thought he did well. Obviously, Ryan Bayer, Brenton Taylor, your two opposites on both sides. I thought he did really well. The one thing in the middle I think we're looking at now is the left guard and center. What is that rotation going to look like? And obviously you have Lyndon Cooper there. You've got Terrence Moore, and then you got obviously Ryan Jacoby, who's also in that group, and you're rotating guys through. What does it look like? The one thing I think that needs to be improved on, and it takes time. You can't, I mean, I said the good and bad, and it's like, it's not bad, but the pace of play. I think that that's the one thing overall when you look at this offense is just this team is just not there yet in terms of how fast they're moving. I mean, it's catch the ball and you're just hearing from this, just you're hearing everything. You just see players moving and running. Um, it's just great. I think they just do a really good job to where you're looking at a real modern day offense. It's just fun to watch. But they're just not there yet. I think it just takes time. I think it takes time to where, how fast they're moving. And I think that's a lot to ask this football team to where, hey, you get 3 weeks. Hope everything's perfect. Go ahead. That's just not how it works. That's just not how it works in college football. It's not how it works in the NFL. That's probably the one area that you'd want to see continue to get better as a whole for the offense, the offensive line, just getting up to the ball, being able to understand where your assignments are. That's the biggest thing. And I mean, that's going to take time because when you look at our offense last year with Frank Signetti, we were running an offense where, you were able to sit around. The whole offense was able to look up at the Jumbotron and say, okay, hey, here's where I missed this block. Okay, here's what happened on this play. You're not doing that anymore. You're moving. You're hauling ass. You're getting to the football. You're getting down. And obviously, you're creating mismatches. And I think that's what really makes Cade Bell so good is his chess match that he plays in his head and really creating different types of styles from what you're going to see. You'll see some of those on Saturday, obviously. I think he's just very creative. I think he's very good at what he does. I think this team's going to be really good on offense because of how many plays it runs. It'll certainly put up points. I think the days of losing to teams that we shouldn't lose to are really over. Even for just, even for how the team looked wise, just and adjusting to the speed of the game. I think those days are over. I think that this team is looking better and better as the time goes on. Are they a perfect form of what you want? No, there's still plenty of progression. There's still more to install. There's still more in terms of what you can look at in terms of blocking scheme or making sure you're on your right man. You're moving in the right direction. You're going from the first level. You're double teams from the first level to the second level. Who's coming off, especially too when you're on over the nose guard, or you're a defensive tackle, and you're going to the second level and you're going after a linebacker. Where are you stretching to? How far and how fast are you getting there? All those kind of things have to take time. And I think the pace of play takes time. So while I say good, good and bad, I mean, it's really not good and bad. It just takes time to progress. But that's what spring ball's for. That's why spring is here. There's just so many overlying questions to where, especially when you're implementing a new offense, it takes time to move this stuff in. It takes time to teach this. And I think that what they've done a really good job of is saying, hey, let's just go fast and we'll reteach it in the classroom. And then when fall comes around, the speed's already there, so now you're only just correcting the dots. You're only correcting where guys need to go. You're already expected to know how fast it needs to be. That's a plus. But overall, when you look at the scrimmage, one, I thought it was a great time. I thought it was fun. I thought it was so good in terms of just what Pitt has decided to do in terms of being able to bring fans who subscribe to Alliance 412. And I've said it time and time again. Alliance 412 is important because this is where college athletics is going. You may have the outlook that I look at. Do I think that the players, getting paid, $2 or $3 million? Hey, whatever, pay them that much. That's fine. But the one thing that I think that is overbearing and just rampant at this point from any team that I've talked to in the country is the tampering. And there's a bunch of tampering going on. And you're looking at teams across the country who are losing guys to the portal because they're getting tampered with. And it's every team across the country, including Pitt. It's not, you're looking at guys that are on the team that are potentially getting talked to. Just how it is. But I think what people need to understand is Alliance 412 is a major, major factor in what we're doing. And I think that, Pat Narduzzi, I think Heather Like, and I think overall the entire athletic department is understanding how important NIL is and Alliance 412 is. When we went to this, to this scrimmage, I thought that was a great first step to say, hey, that's huge. They're finally understanding how important this is. Fans are finally understanding how important this is. The simple $20 a month goes a long way when you have thousands of people who subscribe. I think it's I think it's truly coming down to a point where, you look at, for instance, basketball. You're going to see the script at the bottom with Alliance 412. It's a pure partnership, and I think that really what you've seen for the last really year and a half is that Pitt really didn't buy into it. The athletic department didn't buy into it, and you're finally starting to see that it's got to be together. You got to be one. If parts of the organization are not all in one or all together, you're going to have issues. And I think it's a major step in the right direction that you saw. For instance, guys went to this game, and there was a great group there, plenty of great group and great group of guys that were there. Obviously, I took my sponsor, Colonial Beer, with me. It was great to bring. Bill. I thought it was a lot of fun to go there and watch the game. I think everybody who was in attendance that was there, obviously a Royal subscriber, $100 or more. No one took pictures. No one took videos. The trust is there. For me, I hope that continues to happen. I hope that continues to happen in the future because it needs to continue to get more people involved. I think the togetherness is finally starting to happen. I think it's finally starting to become a group. But I think more and more people need to subscribe to Alliance 412 because it's not just football, it's also basketball. And you're seeing Pitt go after some high-level talent in the portal for basketball. Obviously, I don't cover basketball because don't have any connections, don't know too much about it. My focus is on football because it's where my background and everything from knowledge, connections, everything that I know. But it just shows back and forth that Alliance 412 is truly a key. And I think more and more people need to jump on board and start getting with it to say, hey, you may not like paying the players, but if you want Pitt to survive and continue to thrive and reach a certain level in terms of where we are in college football, you got to support Alliance 412. It's that simple. To get to some of the comments here, how about the tight ends? Pitt Panther Fanatic 1, how about the tight ends? It's your pure guy. You're Gavin Bartholomew. I thought the others, Jake Overman and Jake Renda did a good job. But at the end of the day, you're going to have one guy out there. And if it's not one guy, if it's not Gavin Bartholomew, I think you may have Jake Overman in there for a couple routes here and there. But for his blocking ability is incredible. I think he's a tremendous blocker. But I think overall in the passing game, it's going to be Gavin Bartholomew, and that's it. Any concern of the defense freshman D-line leaving after spring ball? Look, there's no break off of guys that are being recruited. Okay. I think that if anybody would leave, and again, it's just speculation at this point or anything. Just you might want to watch the freshmen. That's all, because there was a very strong connection to Charlie Partridge, but from anything I've heard at this point, I think it's solidified. I think we're fine, but here we are in college athletics. Spring camp's coming to an end. Things are probably going to heat up, and the transfer portal is going to get wild. And Pitt right now needs about 7 guys to go into the portal to get down to 85 guys. So we're going to continue to see who goes in the portal, who's not in the 2 deep that goes in the portal. But is there concern? I would say right now, no. But the game changes so much. The conversations change so much behind the scenes that it could be yes one day and no the next day, then yes the next day. I think that the players and the Alliance 412 has certainly been hyping up Sincere Edwards. There was certainly a lot of conversation about, what does that look like? And, I thought he did a really good job when he came to the presser and talked about how, hey, I was nervous in the beginning. I was nervous about Charlie Partridge leaving and thinking, hey, what are we going to do? And that was a little bit of a concern, but I think that subsided. I think Deion Hayes has done a hell of a job leading that room and calming that room and getting guys to understand, hey, Pitt's not made up of one guy, even though he's the greatest, possibly the best defensive line coach in the country. It's not based off of one guy. This defense still stays the same. It's still a very physical and fast-paced defense. It's that simple. So I would say no right now. Tampering is a real issue that we need to look at. I agree. I think there needs to be more roles involved. I don't care about players getting paid. I care about players getting tampered with. Okay, because here's my thing, and I'm not going to go into too much. I'm not going to go into too much about what I know and what's out there, especially with other universities. But the fact is that in the National Football League, there's a salary cap. In the National Football League, there's contracts. Right now, there are no contracts. Right now, there is no salary cap. I don't like how there's guys on a team Where in the National Football League, when you sign with a team and you're on a team, you can't leave. You can't leave during OTAs. You can't unless you're cut from the team. You can't be getting calls from other teams and saying, hey, you know what? I don't like it here anymore. I'm just going to go. That's just not how it works. And I think that there needs to be a conversation about that, the tampering needs to stop. And it's just rampant. I mean, it's everywhere. And it's not being condoned. It's nothing. And what pisses me off is some of these coaches out here, especially, when you look at some of the coaches around the country. Well, I know this, you saw Mac Brown. Oh, he was contacted. Drake May was contacted for this amount of money last year. Well, Mac, how about adding some names to that? How about, adding some names to that and actually proving who's doing it? Because we know what's going on. I talked to enough collectives. I know what's going on. I know it goes on all the way around the country. It's kind of funny too. It like reminds me of like the center, I guess, the power forward from Purdue. They said he's from Canada, and they're like, "Oh man, he's not getting any money." I got news for you. He's getting his money. He's getting taken care of. He's well off. There are no problems on that end. He's a two-time player of the year. I got news for you. He's getting paid just like the old ways when they weren't telling anybody. And you can be able to send him whenever he goes home. He can go home to Canada. Guess what happens when he's in Canada? He can get his NIL payments. Just being real with people. But there has to be guidelines. There has to be an understanding of like what the hell is going on in college athletics. Who can be contacted? Who can't be contacted? Here's what the portal looks like. If you're in the portal, you're not in the portal. And that's why I was really in favor of the Super League. You take the Power Four as it is right now, and you move to a Super League, and you create one big, you create 10 divisions or whatever it is, and all the TV networks work together. But the reason that I think the Super League won't work is because it's, people are saying, well, the Big Ten and the SEC aren't interested. No, they're not interested because ESPN and Fox and CBS and NBC are all saying, hell no, I don't want you getting involved with that because I don't want to pay more money and dish it out. That's why they're saying no. And there's a lot of conversations about behind that. And that's a whole nother topic that's going on behind the scenes. And obviously the college football playoff, I think money when it comes to the conferences, if the ACC was renegotiating today, it would be getting more money than it is right now. It'd probably be getting 55, 60 million plus because of what the market is right now. And I think that the Big 12 got up, about 40, 45. And I think they get their top level in the next 5 years can be about 47, 48 million. They got that deal because they made it known that they wanted to strike a deal before Texas and Oklahoma left. Well, I got news for Big 12 people. What's it going to look like in 5 years? The two people that were really loading that conference in the Big 12, Texas and Oklahoma, are gone. You have a bunch. It's like the island of misfits over at the Big 12 right now. There's no major brands in that conference. And if they're getting that kind of money at 40 to 45 million per year, imagine what the hell the ACC should be getting with, your Clemson, your Florida State, North Carolina, who I believe is probably the biggest brand in the ACC, Duke, Pitt. Even traditional teams, when you look at from the sense of both sides, Miami's done nothing of late, but it's still a great brand. It's still a major brand. The viewership numbers are through the roof. Just how it is. And that's why people look at it. But I just think that overall, just the way conference realignment looks right now, so many different questions on that end. I think more and more people need to get involved. That's why the Alliance 412 subscribers need to go up. You got to be competitive. You got to continue to win. I think Pitt basketball is back on the right track now with what Jeff Capel's doing. Pitt football needs to get back to that. And I think Pat Narduzzi is starting to understand that, we need to get Alliance 412 involved, and we need fans to get on board because we can coach these players up, but we need to continue to go after certain players. Just how it is. That's why I talk about it. That's why Alliance 412 makes their push on Twitter. That's why you see numerous different commercials. That's why you see players talking about it. It's so important. I mean, hell, Mizzou, Missouri. You look at Zollers, who's a 4-star quarterback here in Pittsburgh. He went to Missouri. Missouri raised $12 million. $12 million in the span of 2 months. That's elite level. That's your elite. Ohio State, they're working with a budget of $13 million. Missouri's working for a budget of $12 million. You're looking at these large budgets. Are we going to get up to $12 or $13 million? No. But I think that, for where we are currently right now, I think we're, in the middle of the half and in the upper portion of the half of the ACC where, you've got, your middle half to where maybe 6 to 7 million in that range, maybe a little bit less. It needs to get better though. Fans need to jump on board and subscribe, and it doesn't need to be 100 or 150, 200, 500. $20 a month and $19.76 a month goes a long way. You do 2,000 or 3,000 of those people, you're making a couple million a year. On top of the large donors that we have, that we don't even know the true number of that, how much they've spent involved in it, along with Chris Bickle and the numerous other guys, plus players, the millions that Aaron Donald has donated. All that stuff goes hand in hand, just how it is. But I think that more and more people need to understand that you have to subscribe to Alliance 412. But speaking of subscribing, subscribe to this channel, Talking College Football with JJ Kitchen. If you've not done so, please hit the like button and please subscribe to the channel. It certainly helps. It helps the algorithm as we continue to grow and as we get ready to drop some player interviews once spring camp is over. Once it's over, we'll be able to drop a couple player interviews we've already done. And obviously, we do have some more on docket that will get released. And those are already recorded videos, edited videos. And we'll get those guys out to you. And if you're subscribed, you'll get those updates as soon as they come out. So I appreciate it. Get on board with Alliance 412. I agree. It's got to happen at this point. Speaking of the athletics department, interesting recognition, I think, by Tony Altimore of greatest attendance increases. I think you mentioned that last show and saw another one with overall athletics department. Yeah, Mark. I mean, you look at what Pitt plays in a 70,000, really 71,000 seat stadium. It's one of the larger ones in college football, besides your Penn State, your Michigan, your Notre Dame. I mean, you look at Ohio State, Alabama, even Auburn. Look at those places, Michigan. 70,000 plus. The majority of colleges are really in the 40, 45, 50, maybe 55,000 range. That's where they're at. So when you look across the country and for 2 straight years, and that's why I laughed at some of the West Virginia fans that were making comments, because it's not factual. Pitt had better attendance in 2021 and 2022 than West Virginia did. This past season, West Virginia sold out one game all year long. Guess who that opponent was? Oh, yeah, Pitt. Pitt was the only sellout for West Virginia this past year. They had numerous games where they had 40-some thousand, 45, 46, 47,000 fans. They're playing in a 60,000-seat stadium. If Pitt was playing in 60,000, that's 10,000 less, 11,000 less. It makes things look 10 times different. And I think that the overall people are starting to understand Acrisure Stadium, and I laugh at this comment too. Acrisure Stadium is not owned by the Pittsburgh Steelers. Got news for people. They lease that stadium just like Pitt does. The city of Pittsburgh, us, the taxpayers, own that stadium. That's what's there. And both teams share that facility. I think it's a tremendous college stadium. I think the benefits, the club sections, the concessions, the restrooms. Obviously, I've been to numerous other college football stadiums where they're just absolute dumps. I mean, they are dumps. And, it was funny to see like West Virginia and Penn State fans talk about, well, how can you consider, there was a poll recently talking about college football stadiums or college atmospheres, and West Virginia and Penn State people, because we live in their minds all the time, talked about how, well, I don't know how you count Pitt because it's a pro stadium. Well, guess what? We pay to play there. The Steelers pay to play there. And guess what? Acrisure Stadium is a nicer stadium than both of them, Morgantown and Happy Valley. State College is going to go through an $800 million renovation that they've just years and years have gone by. That it's just been absolutely horrendous. In which, I've been to Morgantown and I've been to Happy Valley and State College. They're dumps. And I'm being like very generous about it. When you look at Pitt and where they are, they've done a good job because they won. When Pitt continues to win, Pitt continues to rise in terms of athletics and attendance, okay? Like when Backyard Brawl was here this past year, okay? 70,000, 71,000 fans were there. About 55,000 to 58,000 were Pitt fans. Unquestioned. It's probably almost 60,000. And when you look at the pictures, too, I had WVU people telling me, oh, up top on the visitor side, it was all West Virginia people. I looked at the pictures. I was there. It was not. The away section up at top of the closed end zone, up at the top, from halfway over to the left, was all West Virginia fans, and you had some West Virginia fans sprinkled in the bottom rows. I laugh at the attendance stuff because it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, Pitt. I mean, anytime we go to these games, you even hear the announcers talk about how loud it is just because of the venue and how it holds noise. I mean, I'm not worried about it. Tony Altimore, I posted that stuff because it's factual information. I think he's gotten stuff wrong in the past, especially about the Pac-12 stuff, and he was adamant the Pac-12 wasn't falling apart. It fell apart. How it did it, I think he's got some miscues on information. But when you go up and you look at a lot of these answers up where he's getting information from, they're facts. And Pitt's done a hell of a job. And the same thing with the Directors Cup. The athletics department overall has seen a major increase where it was towards the bottom for years, and now it's climbing towards the top. That's just a fact. And I think that has a lot to do with Heather Lyke. I think that, what people need to understand too is, Heather Lyke put us in a real jam. Heather Lyke put us in a real jam with paying for $240 million of renovations to athletics that aren't to football and to basketball. Well, guess what? I got news for you. If you want the Big Ten or the SEC to accept you, you need legitimate facilities. And Pitt was very outdated. If you go to Oakland now and you look at all the facilities that have been done, baseball, soccer, wrestling, gymnastics, even the Peterson Event Center, how much that's been updated. I mean, the facilities are just freakish. And especially now the new area where they're at. I mean, it's incredible. It takes time. But you had to upgrade it, and she spent the money. We're now over like $800 million in terms of upgrades around Pitt athletics. I'm not complaining. I think it was needed, and now you're looking at some elite level athletic departments now. You're looking at elite facilities all the way across the board with Pitt right now, and it looks good. And I'm still adamant that we'll probably hear something in 2026 or 2027, and when it comes to potentially if what the Steelers do, what the stadium looks like. There's a lot of conversations going on about that. I've been adamant about that. I'm not going to go down that road again, but it's truth. It's a fact regardless. Okay, now I got to get back to. I went there a little while, so I missed some comments here. Success with Son. Kudos to Heather Lyke influence. Let's keep the positive momentum going in all areas. I agree, Mark, and I think we are going in the right direction. How many transfers does Pitt take after spring? Brock, it depends on how many guys they got to get off. They need 6 or 7 guys to leave to get to 85. And then after that, it depends how many they get to go. So at this point, if I had to say that in a perfect world, what I would like them to get, I'd like them to get a offensive lineman, 1 more defensive lineman, and then 1 cornerback. That's it. That's kind of where I'm at. But guess what? It's not like a dire need. But they need guys to leave. That's that simple. Unfortunately, we need guys to leave into the portal. It's just how it is. Cautiously with Jacoby proves how crucial he is over the year for offensive line. Yeah, I mean, I think Jacoby's going to be really good. He'll be back during the fall, and I think he'll be really good again. He had a great camp last year. Talked about how well he improved. It'll be good to get him back and to get more depth back. Any freshman you heard that stood out in spring? Francis Breu has really done a good job for a young guy. I mean, he looks like Sincere Edwards, Francis Breu, Sincere Edwards, those guys, man, they're just built like trucks. I mean, they were already squatting 400 pounds when they got here. I thought they've done a really good job. They've really stood out in terms of the defensive line. I think when it gets here, Cameron Lindsay's going to stand out. The 4-star linebacker out of Aliquippa that we got, I think he's going to stand out. He's going to be really good. Overall, let me see here in terms of the I would say that's really about it. I mean, because where else? Because especially too, where else are you going to put some of these freshmen too? Just because there's a lot of depth already in front of them in a number of positions. So I'd say on the defensive line, Francis Breu and Sincere Edwards have been really putting up some really good conversations about how well they're going to do and how well they're going to look. JJ, help me understand. I keep hearing UNC is the biggest brand in the ACC. If college football is driving force of TV dollars, how is UNC the biggest brand in the ACC? For instance, dude, the Jordan brand, if you ask anybody, even Pete Thamel was talking about it recently. When you look overall, you look about dollars and brands. I don't know the exact dollar amount, but I know they bring in millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars because of the Jordan brand. When you think of the Jordan brand, you don't think of Michigan. They wear the Jordan brand, but where did it start? UNC. They're well known because of where they are, their history, especially too, maybe not so much in football, but because of basketball. It doesn't matter where they go. For instance, the Big Ten, if they could add UNC today, they'd add them today. If the SEC could add UNC, they'd add them today. The dollars that they generate from that Jordan brand in the Tar Heel blue, just telling you, they make a lot of money, man. I think they're the biggest brand, and I think maybe you have Florida State number 2. I think overall viewership, even when North Carolina is not even like great at football, their viewership still drives up. It's a massive countrywide brand, global brand. It's not just even in the United States; it's across the country. It's across the country and across the world. Just how it is. That's just they are a massive, massive brand. Honestly, I put them. I don't think they're as big as a brand as Notre Dame, but they're damn near close. When you look at the Tar Heel blue, I mean, anywhere you go across the country, you can go anywhere you go, you'll see Carolina blue. I think that's a massive brand. Miami is a massive brand. Florida State, massive brand. Clemson is a big brand as of recently because of recent success within their football program and national notoriety. But when you go back to the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s, Clemson was not a big brand. I think that they've grown to be a massive brand right now because of the recent success. But they're wavering back and forth because they needed more than a 5 to 10 year spurt. They needed multiple years. And Carolina has been known for plenty of great basketball teams across the country, hands down. My man, Jason Watkins of the Hall of Fame College Football Podcast. You still don't believe me, Sooner in Texas. I'm telling you, dude. Bring back Three Rivers. I will tell you this, Three Rivers, I didn't get to watch any games there, but I heard it was loud as hell. JJ Kitchen, my man, Jason Watkins, of course, always. No, Jason, I don't understand it yet. UNC is nobody in college football. Why are they valued if college football drives the big money? I'll go into that again later on. Pitt is a great sports school. It always has been. Who is saying otherwise? Brother, you have the West Virginia, and I think it's less of West Virginia. It's more of Penn State people. They're just on this high horse that, and again, Penn State's a large brand. There's no denying that. They're a large brand. But when you look at overall, when it comes to national title contention every single year, they're not in it. They lose every year. And it's what people don't understand is, again, like I posted recently, Pitt had the highest number of applicants. Again, another record broken. They had 65,000 applicants to be freshmen this year. I mean, that's freakish numbers. I mean, that's why Pitt, and for people to keep asking, that's why Pitt continues to buy land. Pitt continues to grow. It's going in the right direction. West Virginia is not going in the right direction. They're on the brink of, they're on the verge of $70 million in debt. They cut programs because they said, you know what, it'll help cut back and without that much debt. But you look at athletic departments, one of the highest, I thought it was crazy. Tony Altimore posted about this. You look at some schools across the country, UCLA is the highest in terms of, athletic debt. Georgia Tech's up there, but West Virginia's up there. I mean, they have so much debt in the athletic department on top of the $70 million because of academics. But what drives their problem is the lack of attendance. They used to, back in the day, if you remember, West Virginia was massive. They had about 28,000 undergrad students. They're now under 20. I mean, they just continue to drop, and COVID was a major hurting factor. That hurts them, which is why, obviously, too, I saw the other day, West Virginia, when it comes to their assistant coaching poll, they're second to last in the Big 12 with paying assistants. Not good. Penn State obviously can certainly pay their assistants. That new offensive coordinator is getting $1.4 million now. He's certainly been being looked at. They certainly pay people, but the college football playoff expanding to 12 teams will help Penn State. I think most years Penn State will probably be in the playoff. They just have to make sure, because obviously they have to make sure they beat Oregon, Washington. Obviously, they're not going to have all the teams on there. I think they face Ohio State this year, but they don't face Michigan, but they face Oregon. I think they face Oregon, USC, and UCLA, which USC and UCLA are major brands, but 7-5, 8, 7-5, 6-6 sometimes, 8-4. It's kind of where they've been. Not doing great. I think the Big Ten's only going to hurt them. I think they won't be very successful in the Big Ten, just to be quite honest with you. but it's something to watch. But overall, I mean, Pitt is a massive brand just globally across the world, and that's why they continue to get the applicants of where they are. Get to a couple more of these questions. What positions do you think will have the most attrition after spring? I would say at this point, it's kind of hard to tell, to be honest with you, to be fair, because it depends on who's on too deep and who's not, and who they're moving on from. It all comes down to who they believe that they don't need, and they just got to, unfortunately, push. Just kind of where I see it at this point. Well, attendance at UNC football games is always good. Also, in the ACC up to this point has been very rich in high visibility conference. The college football exploded revenue, but that's in the last 12 years. Yeah, I agree, Jason, 100%. But as long as you've been able to watch college sports in a mass, North Carolina, partly due to NJ and hoops, but mostly because the ACC is highly visible. Yes. And I think that is a major key, too. Of all the conferences, ACC has the most major cities, top major markets to where visibility is across the board. It's major markets on the East Coast. That's just how it is. Per TV sets, everything. Much more than the Big 12. I think the SEC obviously does really well, but then obviously the Big 12 does the most because of just how large alumni bases of where they are. But the ACC has such high visibility because they're in major markets. Atlanta, Pittsburgh, Boston, New York, Miami, the Carolinas, Charlotte. I mean, it just all the way across the board. Now, you add in Stanford and California, you're adding more. Jordan brand is huge, 100%. Facts. They have a large alumni base too. Yes. Clemson's brand doesn't hold a candle to Carolina. Exactly. In the end, sooner, even a place like Alabama and Penn State aren't as recognizable as Carolina Blue in terms of brand. It guaranteed nobody sells merch like UNC. Amen. And they're in the East where all people are. Agree. Well, guys, let's see if I can pull this up here. We're already an hour and 22 minutes into this. I think that's going to be good enough for tonight, when certainly longer. Again, appreciative to Pat Narduzzi and Pitt and Alliance 412 for rewarding subscribers. If you are not yet a subscriber to Alliance 412, subscribe to Alliance 412. Do the basic $19.75 a month, or $19.73 a month. That's great. It certainly helps. Anything helps at this point. But the scrimmage was a lot of fun. It was so much fun to be there, and I'm glad Pitt and Alliance 412 are really on the same page now, and growth is just it's exploding. So if you have not subscribed to Alliance 412, subscribe to Alliance 412. Subscribe to Talking College Football with Pitt. To subscribe to Talking College Football with JJ Kitchen. Of course, it's free. It's right below. Subscribe, hit the notification button, and also to hit the like button as always. And of course, everyone who watches the show, again, great show, brother. Congrats again for hitting 1,000 mark. Thank you so much. That's another one. We will be having a giveaway. I'll let you guys know when that is. Maybe a signed football or something like that. We'll put something together over time. Also, too, we will be doing an in-person meet and greet, probably at the Permanis in South Fayette, the Bridgeville area. It's a massive one. I'd like to meet everybody and, more importantly, have the conversation of why you're a Pitt fan, when you started to become a Pitt fan. If you have questions about Alliance 412, let's have that dialogue and really get Alliance 412 on the map and get over 1,000 subscribers, and maybe even 5,000 to 6,000, 7,000 subscribers. Let's get it done, guys. 7,000 subscribers. That's my goal. That's really my goal at this point. Thank you, Sooner in Texas. Congrats on 1K. Guys, as always, the show is great because of you. The show would be nothing without all of you. It's always a pleasure and a privilege to be able to talk to each and every one of you. We've got 240 people watching the show right now. It continues to explode because of all of you. So again, thank you for subscribing to the show. Thank you for subscribing to Talking College Football with JJ Kitchen. And guys, be good out there. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. But now, as always and forever, hail to Pitt. I'll see you guys next time.